Welcome to our video on installing the boom on my brand new Catrike 559. Now, according to the Catrike manual, once you've put on the derailleur hanger, you should put on the rear tire. However, when we did this with my wife's trike, what we found was on the stand, it became back heavy. So for my trike, we decided to put the boom in before the rear wheel. The first step in this whole process was to put the clamp back inside the main tube there, but the masking tape that we put in to stop wax from getting into the main tube when we were waxing has to come off first. It's really quite easy to remove the masking tape. I just had to separate it away from the tube and it all came out very easily. Next, I had to check for any bits of tape that were still inside the tube that could cause any kind of blockage. There weren't any. Then it was time to clean the inside of the tube of any residue of tape or any excess wax that might have actually got in there during the waxing process. When I do this kind of thing, I only use isopropyl alcohol 99%. 99% has no oil. If I left oil down inside this tube, when I put the sleeve back in there and the boom, they would both move and nothing would hold tight. It's very important to use 99% instead of 75 or 65. The process is actually very simple. All I do is I put isopropyl alcohol on a cotton cloth. Then very carefully I just put my finger in there and give her a good wipe. This removes any possibility of any contamination being in the tube. Now some people may choose not to wax underneath the clamp mechanism that is in this area. We did because our wax is not a slippery wax. Where a lot of waxes that are very slippery, you might not ever want to do that. Once the alcohol had evaporated, it was time to reinstall the clamp. The clamp goes on very easily. The plastic sleeve just goes into the hole while the whole clamp mechanism simply slides on around the outside edge. You have to make sure the skewers are loose and you simply push the metal part in until it's all the way in, and that little tang in the center there lines up with the groove that's on top of the frame tube itself. I slide it all the way in, and once it's in, I just give the plastic lining a little shove just to get everything perfectly in place. And that's all there is to installing the clamp. Next, I clean the boom using, once again, isopropyl alcohol 99%. I'm making it very clear here that I don't want any contamination whatsoever to affect the slipperiness of the attachment between all these parts. Once the alcohol was dry, I made sure the skewers were nice and loose, lined up the boom with the tab on the top and the groove on the boom itself, and I slowly slid it in. What you may find is the boom is going to prematurely stop at some point. Our particular boom actually had the liner, the plastic liner was folded over, so there's a little ridge there, which meant that I had to push in a little bit harder to actually get it seated down in there. Now the tube will only go in so far, or the boom will only go in so far until it hits the cross member of the trike itself. That's where it's going to stop, and it's at its maximum distance into the trike. I make sure the levers have been loose while I'm doing this whole process, or the boom wouldn't go in at all. Next, it's time to align the boom. Now, to align the boom, you have to make sure that the skewers are loose. So if you've tightened them up, loosen them off. The boom actually has to be square to the frame, not the vertical post that holds the front derailleur. The vertical post is leaned over so that the little computer holder on the top doesn't get hit by the crank as you pedal around and around. So when you're doing this, don't align that vertical post, but align the crank assembly to the main tube of the trike. You're going to find you're going to have to do this a few times during the whole process of putting the trike together. Once now, and once you adjust the boom length. Now it's time to tighten the skewers. When you tighten the skewers, you're actually tightening the clamp mechanism around the main tube of the trike. Some people put these skewer levers upwards, some put them back. It's up to you which way you want to do it. Now it's as simple as just turning the tightening knob on the other side and using these levers and pushing the levers over until you feel that there's enough tension on them to actually have enough tension on the clamp to hold the boom from twisting. Eventually we've come to this configuration here where the levers, one's pointing forward and one's pointing back. We found that we needed a lot of tension on the clamp, and this was the best way to achieve it. Now let's talk about possible issues that you might have in your boom. Let's first talk about the bottom bracket. The bottom bracket should be 90 degrees to the main boom tube, and the alignment of the groove in the boom tube should be perfectly centered. If for some reason the bottom bracket is angled or that groove is off to one side, call Catrike and get yourself a new boom. Another possible issue that you can have with your trike is those two slits that are in the frame being in the wrong location. On the left, we see the two slits being perfectly centered vertically in the cross member. And on the right, we see that they are off-center to the cross member vertically. If they are that way, call Catrike, get them to replace your frame or do something for you, because it should not be that way. Let's talk about the next type of issue that can happen with the boom, and that's when the little tab that's in the clamp mechanism being off to one side. On the image on the left, we see that the tab that sticks down through the frame is perfectly centered in the bottle holder. On the next shot, we see that the tab is off-center and the bottle holder is crooked. If your bottle holder is crooked, call Catrike and get them to send you a brand new clamp which has a new bottle holder on it. Also in later episodes, we're going to show you how to put some silicone at the end of your boom and underneath to stop water from possibly getting down inside the main tube. Thank you for watching our episode on installing a boom, and there are many more episodes still to follow. I hope you enjoy our videos and I hope they make sense. Thanks once again for watching. See you out in the trail.